Oh, good morning, gentlemen. All right, looks like we have a couple people in the room so far. I think we're gonna have more joining us later. Um, yeah, so welcome to the Friday Blackbird Workshop. And let's see, there's one name in the room I don't fully recognize. So let me ask and find out before I start answering questions here. Let me find out if there's anybody new to the workshops or anybody here that's fairly new to the workshops. And my question is, if you are new, would you like to hear the workshop introduction? All right, so the workshop introduction is, I'll explain, what these workshops are for, what we do, and probably more importantly, what is not done in these workshops. All right, and then secondly, I'll explain how the recordings work. So if you ask a question, and you want to be able to watch the recording, of your question being answered later on, I'll explain how you can get a copy of that as quickly as possible. And then the third and last topic here, I will explain what indicators I can install into my machine here in case you have a question about a custom indicator or a third-party indicator there. All right. So if anybody would like to hear that workshop introduction, let me know, and I'll get that out of the way first. But otherwise, let's see here. I do have a question that was emailed in yesterday to get today's workshop started. And as usual, guys, if you have questions for Blackbird, you can always put your questions into the Q&A window. So that's the other thing is in these workshops here, the Q&A window is used, questions and answers. So the chat window should be disabled. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't have any takers on the workshop introduction. So with that, all right, let's jump into the first question here. So essentially, it revolves around setting up order sets, right? So we can see here, right, we have an initial stop loss of 20 ticks, and then we have two targets. So we have a 20 tick target and an 80 tick target. And then the interesting part, right, is we have a break even rule here, right? So once one of the targets is hit there, right? So that would be the first target there, right? So once it's hit, then move the remaining stop loss to that break even plus 2, right? And then also, once the break even has been activated, once that, then start trailing that stop loss on the EMA 8 there, right? And that's what I have right here. So I do have the EMA 8 on that chart already. Okay. So, all right, so that's it. So let's start building there. All right, so getting things open. Now it doesn't say what type of entry order to use, so we'll just go with a market entry there. All right. Now let's see here, our first target there is 20. So let's go to our profit targets here, and we'll go down to tick profit targets, and we have a quick one on the quick list here of 20 ticks. So we'll just select that. There we go. We're done. So now, of course, you can always adjust everything within Blackbird. So if you didn't want exactly 20 ticks, then all you have to do is open up the order, go to the initial placement, right? And open up that menu, and then you can adjust this to whatever you want it to be. 25 ticks, for example, or 30 ticks. So, all right. So let's put that back to 20 ticks. There. Now let's get our stop loss in place here. So we have a 20 tick stop loss with a break even at 20 ticks of profit there. So let's see if we actually have one on the quick list for that. We do. It doesn't say what the profit is. I think it's probably going to be 20 ticks of profit as well, I believe here. But anyways, this gets us really close, gets us in the ballpark there, right? So we'll go with that 20 tick stop loss with the trailing with a break even plus one, and then we'll adjust this, to be the break even plus two, and make sure that the break even triggers on that 20 ticks of profit there. All right, so let's select that. There we go. And let's open up the order. There we go. So we don't have to adjust the initial placement, right? It's already at 20 ticks, right? Which matches here, matches the question. So now let's go and double check here that we have our break even plus two at 20 ticks of profit. So that is going to be in the trailing actions tab here. All right, so the trailing actions tab is where all the trailing rules are located. You can stretch that out a little bit. All right, so now these are named here, so we can see this is a break even plus one at 20 ticks of profit. So there we go. It matches this almost exactly, except we need to adjust it here, and we'll go ahead and adjust the name as well. So it says break even plus two, and then the break even plus two, that's the action, right? So the 20 ticks of profit, that's the trigger, right? So once the market reaches 20 ticks in profit, then you trigger that break even condition there. So we can see here under the triggers, it says after 20 ticks of movement, right? Or in profit. So, and then the action is move to the entry price, right? Which is the technical term for break even, right? Break even is kind of the slang term for move it to your entry price, right? So let's open up the action here. And we also need to go to the move order to, right? Let's open up that. You see that's where it says the average entry price. And here is the plus one, right? So we're adding one tick to the average entry price, right? And so we just need to knock that up to 2, like so. There we go. Right? And remember, this is for a long trade, right? It's going to be plus, a positive 2, so plus 2. And then for a short trade, right, it would be negative 2. And that's it. That's all we had to do, is just make that one simple adjustment there of taking the average entry price and then setting it to adding 2 ticks of offset, right? And that's your break even plus 2. Now, the start trailing here, right? So the trailing is the EMA 8, right? So this comes with just a standard 20 tick trailing there. So let's go and adjust the name like so. So there's our EMA 8. And, the trigger is already going to be set correctly as well. So we can see that, the math has been done here. So it says after 22 ticks and movement, right? So what is break even? Right, break even is going to be 22 ticks, right? Oh, well, the break even plus 2, right? So we have 20 ticks, and then the plus 2 brings it up to 22 ticks there. So, yeah. Now, the way this is phrased here, it says, right, when the EMA 8 reaches, right, the break even plus 2 stop price, right? Well, stop losses should not move backwards, right? So if you have a trailing stop loss, it should not move backwards, right? That's counteracting the whole purpose of a stop loss. And so within Blackbird, stop losses do not move backwards, right? So, so really here, if you think about it, this trigger technically is not really necessary, because well, actually, sorry. Yeah, I almost caught myself here. So actually, yeah, it is kind of necessary because we don't want, because it could be possible, in this case here, it could be possible for that EMA 8 or whatever moving average might actually start moving that stop loss before the break even kicks in. So, right. So actually, there we go. So correction made there. Yeah, we do actually need that trigger there. But there could be some situations, when you're using an indicator, generally speaking, when you're using an indicator, depending on how tight your indicator is up against price, right? If you think about it, you may not actually need that trigger there. So you could just put the action in without it. Let's see here. All right, so next we need to edit the action so that the stop loss, right, is trailing the EMA 8, not this 20 tick behind price. So let's go in here, open up the action, and open up the move to menu here, right? And so instead of using price, we're using an indicator. So we're going to change the mode to indicator value, right? Now we have all of our indicators here to use, right? And so the stop loss would then follow the indicator plot. So let's change this from the SMA to the EMA. There's the EMA, and adjust the period to 8, like so. There's our EMA 8. And of course, there's only one plot for the moving average there. So that's already selected for us. All right, and there we go. Now, if you wanted, you could put an offset on that. So for example, right, so we already had that 20 tick offset in place, right? Because remember, originally this trailing stop loss was a 20 tick trailing stop loss. So it had that negative 20 ticks in there, right? But, when you're using indicators to set your stop loss price, right, you can put an offset from it. So we could put that stop loss 2 ticks below the moving average there if we wanted to, right? Or of course we could put it 1 tick above the moving average. So, but in any case, right, there's no offset from that EMA 8 mentioned here. So we'll just set it to 0, like so. And there we have it. So that's it. It's all converted over. All it took were 2 adjustments, right? We just had to adjust the action. For the break even, we just had to adjust the action there to break even plus 2 ticks. And then for the trailing, we just had to convert it from a 20 tick, price trailing to the EMA trailing there. There we have it. So, all right, now let's go in and make our second target here. Right, so we have an 80 tick target. So what we can do is copy this and copy A. Right, and when we make that, right, when you make that copy there, right, if we open up the stop loss, the benefit there is this stop loss has those break evens and trailing rolls within them there, like so, right? So now all we really need to do is go in and adjust our profit target here, right? So this second target And we're going to go over to the options tab. All right, so the second target is supposed to be 80, not 20. So let's go in and make that adjustment there and set it to 80, like so. And there we have it. Now we're all done. Another one thing to note here, if you're really paying attention, which is, right, the first target is 20 ticks there. So this stop loss, let's go to the trailing actions tab, right? This stop loss is never going to move, right? Because once 20 ticks is reached, right, our profit target's going to be filled. So, so really these trailing rules don't really do anything. So, if we wanted to, we can just go in here and delete them, like so, get rid of them. They're unnecessary. So, then go back to the options tab there, click OK. All right, there we have it. So some other notes here. Yeah, so the way this is phrased here, right, is move to the break even when that profit target, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be the take profit order, if this is referring to the order or not. But if it is referring to the order, right, because they do correlate, right? Obviously our break even rule, let's go to the trailing actions tab here. So our break even rule here, right, is essentially the same thing as, when that profit target gets filled. So another thing you could do here, instead of saying, after 20 ticks, we could go in and we can go to the advanced tab. Let's open this up a little bit there. And I'm going to remove this trigger here, right? So this is the trigger that's monitoring that 20 ticks of market movement, right, in a profitable direction there. Well, I can delete this and then go to the add button and add the order status changed, right? And which order are we looking to change? It's going to be that profit target, right? So from here, right, this says select your order. So which order do we want to monitor? It's that profit target, right? Profit target for A, right? So order set A here, that's the profit target. And then what change are we monitoring for? Well, yeah, it's not being placed. It's actually when it's filled, right? So we want to know when that profit target for A, right, our first profit target, when it's filled there. So, you could say, when it's all filled or when any quantity is filled, right? So, if your quantity is greater than 1, then you're probably going to want to put it as any filled, right? So, yeah, so, right, there's a secondary way to essentially, achieve, the same goal here, which is, move to break even once the market gets to that profit target, right? Now, there are some technical differences there, right? So, just because the market touches your profit target does not mean it gets filled, right? So if you're saying only move to break even when it gets filled, right, that is a more conservative approach. You actually have to have a filled versus market touching it, right? So your stop loss may not move to break even, all right, when that profit target doesn't get filled. So yeah, so we'll put it back on the more liberal condition there, which was that interval, right? So there's two ways you could do this. You could use interval, or you could use the profit or loss as well, right? So we could set up the profit or loss to monitor for profit, and we'll switch this over to ticks and then enable, right? So we want a minimum of 20 ticks of profit, right? So that does the same thing. It's just, if you notice, right, there were a couple of extra clicks. I mean, obviously it's no big deal, but that's why when you're first setting up your stop loss, right, and you're selecting from that quick list, the reason why it just uses the interval is because it's just so much quicker to set that up, right? Boom, done. Right? Save yourself a few seconds. So not that much of a difference there. But yeah, there's three different ways, that you could approach this break even when the market, either hits your profit target, or reaches that 20 ticks of profit. So yeah, a couple of different ways to approach that. All right, well, now that we have this all set, let's go ahead and take this for a spin and see how it goes. Let's see here. I think, luckily I have a delayed market feed here. All right, so it looks like, yeah, shoot, probably getting in a little late here, but we do have a little bit more of an up move here. Hopefully I didn't get in too late, and we can get that 20 ticks there. And actually, yeah, you know what? That stop loss did not move. So let me just double check. Oh, let's see here. That's right. I did put it back on I did leave it on the advanced tab here. Oh, let's see. No, I did leave it on the interval. Here we go. Well, let's switch this over actually. Let's switch this over to the order status changed. And I'll put it on any filled. There we go. All right, and I think now, there we go. All right, there it is. So now our stop loss is following that EMA 8. There we go. All right, let's go one more time. Pretty darn quick. There we have it. Well, for the NQ, and Q. Yeah, 20 ticks is pretty tight. There we go. Oh, and you know what? Let me adjust something else here. Yeah. All right, so here's the trailing roll, and I'm going to open up the actions here. And, oh, sorry, not the actions, the repeat. And yeah, okay, so here we go. Yeah, so remember this trailing was based on, tick by tick price movement here. So we switched this over to an indicator, right? The moving average. And of course, the indicator only updates when the bar closes, right? On a bar by bar basis, not on a tick by tick basis there, right? So we want to switch the repeat every, right? Instead of on a tick by tick basis, because remember the EMA does not move tick by tick basis, unless you change your calculate mode, but I'm not going to get into that. So we're going to go down and change this to bars, right? So there we go. Yeah, so the repeat, every should be set to bars since the EMA only updates once per bar, right? When the bar closes there. So there we go. All right, so now let's go through and let's try this again. Well, I think that, yeah, the market's still going up. Okay. There we go. There's our break even. And let's see if we get some trailing here. There we go. There's some trailing. There we go. And that was that. Now, one thing to note here is when you're using a moving average like that, you got to make sure your indicator is on the right side of the market when you're trading. So let's go short. And look at there. You see those stop losses? We had a split fill. So yeah, let's see, the market still should be moving up. All right, let's give this one more time. No. All right, market still wants to consolidate a bit more before it moves back up. All right, let's try this again. All right, there we go. Now we have some trailing going on. Excellent. All right, there we have it. Okay, so let's just kind of review this again here. Right, so really, nothing fancy here, right? So we have two targets, right? And so whenever you have a different target, that means you have another order set, right? That's the whole purpose of order sets, just like Ninja's ATM right? For every target you have to create another set within Ninja's ATM. So, right, so we have the 20 target, 80 target there. And then of course this stop loss doesn't really do anything, right? It's just a fixed stop loss there. So actually, we should turn off the trailing actions there. We should just turn that off since that stop loss is not going to move there. All right, so 20 ticks. There we go. So, and then this stop loss is the one that has all of the trailing rules in it there. So let's switch over to the trailing actions here. And here we go. So there is our break even. Right, and again, this was set. Yeah, this was set using the order status changed, right, to monitor when that profit target is being filled. Again, you could switch this over and use the interval or the profit or loss, right? The interval is quite a bit easier to use there, right? You just enable the ticks of movement and then put in your 20 ticks, and there you go. And there you're all done with the trigger. So, it's just a matter of technically, how you want to approach this definition here. So, yeah. And the other thing to note, right, is when you are trailing an indicator, right? So here's our trailing rule here. When you are trailing an indicator, right, remember indicators update once per bar. So in the repeat here, you want to set this to bars. So, yeah. So as we saw, if you leave it on ticks, right, that's a little too much for most computers to handle, trying to constantly pull NinjaTrader for the price of that moving average there. Yeah, so it's best to just leave it on to set the repeat every to bars when you're working with indicators. So, all right, well, that does it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And there's Ned. Yeah, all right. Yeah. So Ned, what you can do here is email in. Yeah, since you got here a little late, if you wanted to watch the whole thing again, how this was built here, you can just email support and ask for the recording of today's workshop be uploaded to, and wait for it, uploaded to our raw channel here, right? Uploaded to our raw channel here. So this is a secondary YouTube channel that we have where we can upload the entire workshop recording there while our video editor, and as we can see, our video editor is getting way behind here. But this is supposed to be a temporary upload place while our video editor slices and dices and cuts all the different questions into their own separate videos there, right? So for example, if you go to the training workshops page here, right? Remember, this is under support training workshops there. So if I scroll down, right, here's a link to our YouTube channel right here. So I can click on that. So this is our our standard YouTube channel, right? So yeah, this is our more public facing YouTube channel here, where all the workshop videos are cut into their individual components, right? So for example, yeah, I'm back on the workshops page here, right? So when you scroll down to this list and you look at all of these individual videos, right? The you know that's the each question, you know, chopped up into its into individual recordings there, individual videos there. Yeah. So yeah, so again, that video editing to cut them all up does take time, and so in the and so that's why in the meantime we have our Shark Indicators Raw channel here, so that way you can watch the recording as quickly as possible, you know, without having to wait for the video editor to cut cut the video up, you know, into something that's more presentable, you know, which is what you see on here. So, yeah. All right. So again, just to reiterate, you can email support and ask for today's Blackbird workshop video be uploaded to the Raw channel here. All right. And then that should go up later tonight. So that way it'll be available for you tomorrow morning. All right, well, I am ready for the next question, gentlemen. So if anybody else has any questions, let me know. Richard is asking, how does it work for two different moving averages? That's a little too vague there, Richard. It works any way you want it to work. Um, I mean, yeah, how would you want it to work for two different moving averages? I mean, I guess the question is, Richard, how are you having one stop loss move to two different moving averages? How are you splitting one stop loss so that it's following two different moving averages? Um, you know, uh, if I go long here, right? If you got one stop loss, how are you having that stop loss follow two different moving averages there? So, okay, all right. So Richard says, yeah, EMA 8 crossing over the 50 SMA entry. Oh, for an entry. Okay, yeah, well, okay. Um, so this is a entry signal question here, not, okay, I assumed it was a kind of a follow-up on this stop loss question here, following the EMA 8. So, yeah, so that would be done in Bloodhound. So in Bloodhound, you would need to create an EMA 8 crossing the SMA 50 entry signal, right? So once you have that built in Bloodhound, then you could load that Bloodhound signal right into your signals right there, right? So you just select Bloodhound and then open up the menu here. And here you can see here is where you would load your Bloodhound template file. And so let's see, I think I might have something here that will work as an example. Oh, actually, there we go. Look at that. So I actually do have an EMA 9 crossing over the EMA 30 as an example, right? So you load in this Bloodhound file here. And once it loads in, then we need to select our logic template that has the entry signals, right? So there we go. So that's how you would put a moving average crossover entry signal into Blackbird. Well, really any signal, right? So, just looking at, speaking about it more generally, right? Bloodhound, with Bloodhound, you could create almost any kind of entry signal there. And then, and then load that Bloodhound entry signal into Blackbird. So, yeah. So one thing to note here is when you do add a signal to Blackbird, once we click OK, that we do have to reload the chart, right? Let's see here. Oh, all right. Yeah. So normally this will say, hey, you need to reload the chart so that Blackbird, well, not Blackbird, so that Bloodhound can spin up, so that NinjaTrader can spin up the Bloodhound indicator there. So before reloading the chart, let's close out this order first, of course, and then we can reload the chart. There we go. All right, and now here's the Bloodhound signals loaded onto the chart, and also Blackbird also has access to those Bloodhound signals now as well. Right, and we probably should put this on our logic template for the entry signals, like so. There we go. And turn on the auto trading. Let's see, this is the EMA 8, and I don't have the EMA 30 on here, but if the market goes down a little bit more, I bet we'll get a short signal. Yeah, and it looks like the market is going to start drifting lower here. But in any case, there you go, Richard. Yeah. Well, if anybody else has any more questions or follow-up questions on what's been, answered, let me know, guys. Here. All right, yeah, it looks like Ned had some follow-up questions here. All right, yeah, so Ted, that's a technical question for your broker. Um, yeah, that's outside the realm of what we can do here. So Ned is asking, how can I set up a stop loss so that it doesn't get filled if the wick, punches through the EMA 8 there, but instead the bar closes on the other side. Yeah, so that look, we can't modify the exchange rules there. If a stop loss is hit, a stop loss is hit. So you would have to go to your broker to see if you could get that exception made somehow. So yeah, so yeah, so all right, so yeah, and that's saying so right. If the bar closes below the moving average, then yeah, exit. But as you should, hopefully you understand how stop losses work. Your stop loss is going to get filled before the bar closes um, below that EMA there. Yeah, so um, just keep in mind, guys, Blackbird is just a piece of software, so it's not a piece of magic, so our software cannot um, nullify, the exchange rules or anything like that. We can't circumvent um, it. Yeah, we just can't circumvent exchange rules. So, all right. Well, I think that's kind of as far as I can go with that. So, all right. So you want to remove the stop loss? So you're saying, yeah, remove the EMA 8 stop. So what exactly does that mean? Does that mean remove the stop loss? So you'll be trading without a stop loss? Is that what you're suggesting? Yeah, all right. So Ned, I'm just kind of getting the same answer here. Remove the EMA stop. So is that the stop loss? Because this stop loss is not an EMA stop. It's a stop loss. It's an order. Um, so you want to remove the EMA 8. So um, okay. I'm just going to assume that you're saying remove the stop loss. So, all right, yeah. And so we're going to remove the stop loss and in its place identify or create an exit condition. So when the bar closes on the opposite side of the EMA 8, that will be the exit condition. Yeah. So, just to clarify, guys, in this workshop, using the correct terminology is critical in these workshops because we are talking about mechanical, and technical details here. So calling that stop loss an EMA 8 stop is technically not correct. It's just a stop loss. You know, it may be following the EMA 8, but it's not an EMA 8. It's a stop loss order, right? So just to be clear here. So, because when you say EMA 8 stop, it sounds like somehow you're combining two things together that doesn't exist in the real world. So that's why I'm just trying to make sure that we're both on the same page here with terminology when you're trying to explain something to me. So, yeah. Let's see here. So, okay, let me kind of clean up the Q&A window here a little bit. So, all right, and so, okay, let's open up Blackbird here. All right, so let's remove the stop losses like so. We can just delete those out of there like so. And another good little note here, right? You'll notice it's still trading even though we're editing it. So just so you know, changes do not take place in real time within NinjaTrader. That's not the type of platform NinjaTrader is, right? Actually, I don't think there's really any platforms that will adjust everything in real time, right? So you can see, so whatever changes we make within Blackbird, they do not take effect until Blackbird is flat. So you have to close the settings window, and then also Blackbird has to be flat. So with the window closed and when Blackbird is in a flat state, then all of the setting changes then take place. So, yeah. All right, so we have our stop losses removed. And so now, let's see, I'm going to go into the larger profit target here. And we're going to actually create a trailing rule, or I'm sorry, an exit rule, or a trailing action, technically more correct, an action here in the larger profit target there. We'll create a trailing rule, although of course nothing's trailing anymore. So whatever, give it whatever kind of name you like there. And so the condition we're looking for, right? So remember, triggers are just conditions, market conditions, order conditions. The one we're looking for is Blackbird doesn't actually do crossovers technically, right? But you can compare price to an indicator, or you can compare price to price. So we're going to use this. Essentially, this is the comparison solver in Bloodhound. So this is very similar to the comparison solver in Bloodhound. So let's select the price versus indicator, right? And so our first input A, the closing price, yeah, right? We're going to check when the closing price is on the wrong side of the EMA 8. And so input B, that will be our EMA 8. So let's open this up. And let's replace the SMA, right? Open that up with the EMA. There's our EMA 8 period. There we go, like so. All right. So now we have to figure out what is the actual condition here. So when we're in a long trade, right? Long mode meaning long trade. Is A equal or above B? No, the close needs to be actually below the EMA. So we want A below B. So, maybe you might want if the close equals the EMA, good enough. All right, you could include the equals in there, but I'm just going to go with A below B. And then for a short trade, it's going to be the opposite there. So we'll put that to A above B. All right. Okay, so that's the condition we're looking for, right? Is the bar closing right on the opposite or the wrong side of the EMA. And then the action here is, right, we're not going to move our profit target. So we're not moving the order. We are going to flatten the position, right? Close it out, flatten it out, like so. Okay, so that's all we had to do. Is we don't, so let's open this back up. A flattened position flattens the entire trade. So because this will flatten the entire trade, we don't actually need a trailing rule within this target, right? So that trailing rule in the larger profit target, will flatten the entire trade. So, right, so if order set A is still open, right, it closes that out. So, all right, cancel that. Okay, click OK. And let's see here. Let's go short, see what happens. And bingo, there we go. That was pretty quick. And well, all right, I'm just waiting for the market to kind of pick a direction. There we go. Let's try this again. Well, see, it didn't quite close below it, almost. So it depends on where this bar closes. There we go. Oh, there's a short. All right, excellent. No, and there we go. Boom, done. Yeah, so looking at my live data feed chart, yeah, it looks like we're in a bit of consolidation for now. So I don't think we're going to get any good runs here. Maybe if I get this right, we might get a short run. Actually, no, a long run here. Yeah, we might get a long run. There, let's go long here. This might be that long move. There we go. All right. Going. And there we go. Took it out. All right. So, yeah, one thing to note here, let's go along again, is, right, you can always move your orders around here like that. However, let's see here. Let's go to the order monitor, and I'm going to pin this there. And when we look at the order monitor, right, so remember, this is the profit target for B, that the trailing is turned off now. And that's because I manually moved that order. So that means, look here, right, the trade did not close out because the trailing capabilities is disabled because I manually moved that order, right? So yeah, keep that in mind that when you move your orders around, the trailing rules get disabled, and they have to be disabled because otherwise your order will snap right back to where the trailing rules are, right? So either your trailing rules are on or they're off. So if you do move an order, your trailing rules do get turned off. But you can go ahead and enable them again, and now boom, now we got closed out. So, yeah. All right, so just remember, Blackbird's a piece of software. It doesn't read traders' minds, so it doesn't know what you intended to do, right? It just knows what you did do. So, yeah, so if you do move an order around, the trailing actions gets disabled after you move an order. So, okay. Yeah, let me go back to the Q&A window here and yeah, just read through all these comments or questions again. There. All right, we have a long time trader in the room. Excellent. Yeah, so Ned, please just yeah, use technical terms with me. No need to yeah, try and dumb things down, I guess. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. So, all right. So I think yeah, we have one adjustment here. Oh, okay. Yeah. So here's a comment here. So Ned still wants to have the close below the EMA8 active when the EMA8 price is at or above the break even. So there is no more break even, Ned. You removed the stop losses. So what is there to move to break even? Yeah, there is no more break even, right? Break evens are specific to stop losses. So, yeah, so you'll have to explain to me like what is moving to break even. There is no more break even anymore. So now yeah, so without those stop losses, you could, you could go, yeah, you could go into the trailer rules and well, all right. So obviously, what I'm about to say is a really dumb idea, but just to, again, this is for training purposes here to show you what can and cannot be done. So you could go into the trigger, and if we go to the advanced tab here, right, go to the advanced tab, and we could add, this interval here. And so now we have two triggers, right? So let me move this one down below. All right, so on top here, we have the interval, right? So the interval says, so the interval that will trigger when the market moves 20 ticks, right, in a profitable direction, right? And then the other trigger, right, is that, the closing price moving below the EMA. All right, so we have two conditions now. And we could say they have to be executed in sequence. So if we do in sequence, right, that means the interval has to be triggered first, right? So this has to occur first, the interval, because it's on top. And then the comparing the closing price to the EMA, then this will follow secondary. So, right, which obviously is a bad idea, because what happens if you never get 20 ticks of profit? Then you're left naked without a stop loss, right? So, yeah. So, as I said, that, this is a really, really bad idea. But, the reason why I'm showing this is to show you that, you can combine multiple conditions together, on the advanced tab here, right? You can take all of these trigger conditions and you can mix and match them together and combine them, based on the mode, right? So do they all have to happen simultaneously together on the same bar, right? Can they happen in any order, right? Like all of your conditions have to occur eventually, but they can occur in any order, right? And so once the last condition has become true, then, then your trigger, is true after all of them. Or you could put any, you can say any, right? So it's like whichever one happens first. So the any is whichever condition happens first, then do the action there, right? So you can mix and match multiple conditions together to before an action takes place, or to trigger an action. So yeah. So I'm gonna guess here that probably, let's go back to there. I'm gonna delete the interval there. So we can just go back to the basic tab now. Basic tab. All right, so there's our price versus indicator condition, like so. Yeah, and what you could do is we could just put a fixed stop loss in there. Right, just put a plain old fixed stop loss in there. And then, well, actually, yeah, you know what? Go back. Yeah, let me go back into, right, the profit targets trailing actions here. And I'll go back to the advanced tab. And let's add that interval back in there. So I want the interval on top, just basically just as how I showed you before. Set that to 20 ticks. Set the mode to, where is it? In sequence. All right, so the market has to move 20 ticks in a profitable direction, and then this exit condition will kick in afterwards, right? That exit will kick in afterwards. So, and now, right, now we can see that placing this 20 ticks of profit, as a limitation to our flatten action, right, to our flatten trailing rule here, right, putting this 20 ticks in profit requirement in is now safe to do, because we have a stop loss there, right? So now the system is not totally naked there. All right, let's see what happens here. Yeah. Well, I gotta say, it's really nice when the market kind of works with us to give us a good example here. Yeah, this is kind of nice. So it looks like we're probably gonna close below the EMA here, is my guess. Maybe. No, not quite yet. Bingo. There we go. So, all right. So, yeah. So hopefully it just kind of gives you an idea that you can mix and match, kind of whatever you kind of want there. So, yeah. All right. Let's see here. Let me. Yeah, let me continue to go through the questions here. Although, I'm going to pause here with Ned's follow-ups and just quickly answer Richard's question here. Richard's asking, is a 15 range bar one good for testing signals? Well, it depends. For testing signals, I don't know. So, that to me sounds like kind of almost like trading advice. I like it for testing, the things I build in Bloodhound, simply because um, I don't, on a range chart, you don't have to wait a minute before a bar closes, right? So when I'm testing something that I build within Blackbird, I want the bars to be able to close fairly quickly. So we're not sitting here for 5 minutes, waiting for 5 bars to go by, for example. If something has to be on a time-based bar, then usually what I'll do is I'll go down to either a 10-second bar or a 15-second bar. So we're not having to wait so long for bars to close. But when you are testing your trailing behavior or your flattened conditions, right, testing your order setups, for me, I like bars to close fairly quickly so that we're not sitting here for a long time, waiting on time to pass. Um, so, generally speaking, yeah, I do like these range bars because, as we've all kind of been able to watch, these range bars kind of close fairly quickly and we can watch the testing going on quickly as well. So, yeah, so we don't have to sit around and wait. So, um, and I think usually on the NQ, I think usually I'm running a 30. Yeah, usually I'm going with the 30 range there. But today I moved it to the 15 range. It just kind of looked like the market was a little calmer today. Again, this is all judgment calls, based on whatever the current trading day is throwing at you, right? So, yeah, and so far, these 15 range bars haven't moved too quickly. So, yeah, so sometimes in these workshops, if I'm on a 15 range charge and they're just flying by too quickly because the market's in a in a chaotic day and I'm losing my voice, then I'll bump it up to a 30 range, so it just kind of slows the bars down a little bit, right? So it's all just a judgment call there, Richard. So, all right, let's see here. Let's switch back to, let me finish reading what Ned has here and take a drink of my coffee and Get my voice back. Okay. All right. Yeah. So, all right. So, yeah, Ned wants to we're, add a kind of limited functioning stop loss there back into this. So, all right. Yeah. So I kind of, yeah, figured, yeah, this is where this might end up going here. All right. Yeah. So we have our fixed stop losses here. And so for our second stop loss, we'll add back in that break even functionality there. So again, on the trailing actions tab, right, set it to custom. So now we can start creating some custom trailing rules there. There. All right, give it a name. And so the triggers here, let's see here. Yeah, so well, yeah, I guess, yeah, I'll just go with with the interval. You know, again, if you wanted to, you could go with the there it is. You could go with the order status changed, so that way the break even only occurs when the target's filled, not just when price touches it. But I'll go with the more liberal approach here, and we'll put in 20 ticks like so. All right, so the action is going to be, right, we're going to move our stop loss to, right, not the last price, but the entry price. And then we'll put in the +2, right? So there we go. Okay, so there's that break even rule back in place, like so. And let's go, no, that was wrong. Well, maybe not. This still could work out. And there we go. There's our break even. All right. Let me finish getting through now all these comments or questions. Yeah, so, you know, just comment here. Yeah, it's all in the communication. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, trading is a very technical, or, yeah, kind of really to communicate clearly, yeah, requires a good knowledge of technical conditions, and some technical terminology as well, for sure. So because I have heard it all. So after a year or two of doing these workshops, I realized I needed to stop assuming I understood what somebody meant, because I was finding out that somebody would explain something very loosely, and I would interpret that in my mind, and it was totally different than what the trader intended, what the trader wanted. So at that point, I realized, okay, I can't make any assumptions anymore. because my definitions of trading is different than other people's definitions of trading, right? So yeah, so in these workshops, I really won't answer a question unless I fully understand exactly what the trader wants there. Yeah, and so I will go back and forth until it's absolutely clear as to what is wanted from you guys. So let's see here. All right, so I'm continuing to go through these comments here, and all right, yeah. So this current one says, yeah. So when the first target is of 20 ticks of profit is hit, yeah, then the EMA 8 exit condition is active. So yes, yeah. So just to be clear, that is how this exit condition was created. So yeah, let's see if we stretch this. Actually, no, we can stretch this over. There we go. Yeah, so we can see after 20 ticks of movement and comparing the closing price to the EMA. Yeah, so there's our two conditions in there. But also, we also need to make sure that the mode is set correctly as well, right? So these have to be in sequence, right? So the 20 ticks of profit needs to occur first, right? And then check to see if the close is on the wrong side of the EMA. Yeah. So, okay, so we have that in place. So let me get rid of that comment there. Yeah, and we have the stops. Okay. All right, so let's see here on this last comment here. I think I understand what's needed here. So he's saying, yeah, all right. So Ned, you're saying we could use the entry price to, I think, trigger the EMA 8, and closing price comparison. Sure, yeah. So I think what this last statement means is, let's see, use the entry price. No, actually, I don't understand what that means. Okay. Actually, I think I do now. All right. So, yeah. So, yeah. So if you don't want to wait for this 20 ticks of profit, which I think you probably do, I think you do really want to wait for that first target to get hit before the exit, before this EMA 8 exit condition kicks in. But again, this is a training workshop here, so I'm here to kind of show you what you can and can't do with Blackbird. So if you wanted to adjust this, maybe later on you decide, oh, let me try something else here. So we could get rid of this interval and add another where to go? There we go. Another price versus indicator condition. And let's see. All right, so for input A, I'm going to set this to the EMA. All right, so we'll switch the mode over to indicator. And then let's go find that EMA. All right, there's our EMA 8, like so. All right, EMA 8. So input A is our EMA. And then input B, I'm going to set this to price, right? Mode set to price. And then here, I'm going to select the average entry price there. Now, of course, you could select the entry price, but as we've seen, sometimes you do get split fills, right? We have two separate contracts here, so sometimes you get split fills. So anyways, whatever you want to go with, the actual entry price, for that order set or the average. So anyways, we're going to set input B to the average entry price. And so here, the condition is when the EMA reaches the entry price, right? So when A equals or is above the entry price. So as soon as the EMA reaches that entry price, right, this trigger becomes true, right? That's that condition. And then I'm going to knock this down. Yeah, it'd be kind of cool if at some point maybe we could kind of rename these triggers here, but for now you'll just have to open them up, right? So I can see this is my EMA versus the entry price, and the one down below here, right, it's the close versus the EMA. So now with this condition, we can see the mode is still in sequence. So in other words, the EMA has to reach the entry price or go above it there, and then this exiting condition here, right, the close, the bar closing on the wrong side of the EMA, that is when this exiting condition can occur, right? So we need the EMA to reach the entry price first, and then that exit condition can occur. Okay. So yeah, right. So lots of ways you can mix and match that if you want. There. And all right, so I'm adjusting these stop losses here just to give some breathing room here so the market doesn't cancel this little test here too quickly. There. All right. Well, I'm gonna just let this play out here just to have some fun. And there we go. Boom. Let's see here. Do I go short or long? The market has been in a good steady up move today. All right, I'll go short. Well, there's our break even. Shoot. Yeah, I was kind of hoping that the stop loss would stay behind so we could test the EMA exit condition. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is going to be pretty tough to test. Well, all right, with any luck, we might get a test here. Yeah. Well, okay, actually, no, the test is still valid here. So if the market moves down, well, that EMA hasn't crossed the average entry price yet. Now, no, just did. Okay, well, in any case, um, yes. Quite often the market doesn't want to work with you. So, um, actually, yeah, the quickest way to kind of reset this stop loss here is to just delete it. And then we'll just drop another 20 tick fixed one in place like so. But this stop loss, right? This stop loss, it does have that trailing roll in place. So I think it's just a little quicker if I just adjust the number again, like so. There. All right, now everything's back to the way, well, no. Sorry, let's go into our exit condition here. So, and I guess, yeah, another side note here is since we do have stop losses in place, the exit condition here, trying to get this open. There we go. Our exit condition, if you prefer, it doesn't matter, but if you prefer, this exit condition can now go back into the stop loss if you want. So, 6 or half dozen the same. Doesn't really matter where this goes. So, let's see here. But in any case, yeah, so let me reset this back to normal. And all right, yeah, so I'm going to delete the EMA compared to the moving average. Get rid of that. And we'll put back in place our 20 ticks of market movement there. All right. And then also, a little side note. So a weird little glitch with the company that makes this user interface here is you can't drag things up put it on top. You actually have to take the top one and drag it down. There we go. So now the interval is on top. So waiting for that 20 ticks of profitable movement in the market is on top, and then the EMA exit condition is on the bottom. And so now we have our sequence in the correct order. So there. All right, so that has been put back as well. There, let me just click OK. All right, open that back up. Let's see. All right, so let me finish going through the comments or questions in the Q&A window. Let's see. Yeah, right. I've heard it all in these workshops. So, um, so, all right. Well, there we go. So looks like we got through that round of questions, and looking at see who's in the room. Yeah, we have some more people in the room. All right. Well, welcome, guys. Yeah, I haven't seen some of you in a while. Welcome back. Okay, guys. Well, hey, I'm ready for the next round of questions there. So if anybody has some questions, let me know, and I'll get them answered for you. Let's see. Also, well, we are at the 1.5 hour mark, or just past the 1.5 hour mark. So not too bad for a Blackbird workshop here. All right. So with that said, guys, I'll hang around until about 45 minutes after the hour. All right. So that's about 7 minutes or so. And if I don't see any more questions during that time period, then I'll assume we are done for the day and everybody's ready to check out because it's Friday. All right, but again, if you have more questions, guys, go ahead and put those into the Q&A window, and I'll get them answered. Right, so as long as questions keep coming in, the workshop will stay open to make sure I get your questions answered. But yeah, if I don't see any more questions in the next 7 minutes or so, then I'll assume we're done for the day. All right, so while I'm waiting for questions to come in, I'm just going to mute my microphone here, and we'll watch the market do its thing and Blackbird do its thing. Yeah. Okay, gentlemen, I'm gonna call it. So it's been pretty quiet for some time now. So I think we must be done for the day. So yeah, let me just remind you here. Actually, a couple of notes here. Again, if you have any questions that you want answered in these workshops, remember you can always email those into support, and it's just it's helpful if you put workshop question in the subject line of your email. So yeah, it just kind of helps us know what your intention is when you ask questions. So all right, again, Ned, if you want to watch the recording of everything that went on, so it was quite a lot. Again, you can email support and ask that today's workshop recording is uploaded to the raw channel. So remember, or just ask that it's uploaded, right? That's all you got to do is say, hey, can you upload today's video? And remember, it's going to go into the Shark Indicators raw channel here, right? So this is our just kind of temporary holding place there for videos as we're waiting on our video editor, which it looks like he's got quite a bit of a backlog here. And then once that week's topics have been cut out, then it does get deleted from this temporary holding spot here, right? So, and also just to note, because our Q&A session was back and forth quite a bit, this the building of this system does not make good recording material. So so the video of your question is not going to make it to our list of stuff here. Yeah, it's just too much work for our video editor to kind of clean it up to make it presentable, something easy to follow, to make it on our list here. So yeah, so the short version is the only recording you're going to get is the one that ends up on the raw channel if you ask for that. So right, but there are many other videos that are of the same nature, right? So having a first profit target, that when that target gets hit, move your remaining stop loss to break even and then trail it afterwards, right? This is a very common theme, amongst traders to do something like that. So there's lots of videos that already exist showing you how to set up that break even, showing you what needs to be done, to go into the trailing actions and adjust things so you can customize it to whatever profit target settings you want or profit level settings, things of that nature, right? There's lots of videos showing, how to have a stop loss follow a moving average or the super trend indicator, right? So there's lots of other videos up there of this, that follow along the same theme, and it's again just a matter of adjusting, the values, right? Adjusting the tick values, things of that nature. So, and let's see here. Oh, yeah. Also, one other little tip here. I have seen on Reddit and I believe on NinjaTrader's Discord forum that NinjaTrader has had a lot of locking up due to the sound settings that they have made changes to in the last couple of updates. Yeah, so if you go into your settings there, right, that when you have an order on, right, NinjaTrader plays all these different sounds, and apparently the sound player has been locking up NinjaTrader. So a lot of people with their own custom strategies, have been complaining, or just people who trade a lot have complaining of NinjaTrader locking up and stalling. And somebody discovered it's because of these sounds here, right? So yeah, just be mindful of that when you're running Blackbird. Blackbird does play sounds, and so that can lock it up. But you can go into the alerts here. So open that up. And there we go. It took a moment, didn't it? Yeah, you can go to alerts, and I'm pretty sure it's on by default. I think the alerts is on by default here. But yeah, if any strategy plays sounds, that has the potential to lock up NinjaTrader. So hopefully they get that fixed sometime soon there. But yeah, just be mindful of that. Yeah, so for now, you can just either turn off the alerts and there's no sounds, or you can just turn the sounds off there. So yeah, and actually what was suggested, and many NinjaTrader users have confirmed, that if you delete the sounds in NinjaTrader, that fixes the problem. So that seems to be pretty conclusive that it's the sound player that's locking up NinjaTrader. And let's see here, I'm not sure where the sounds are. Oh, yeah, let's see. The sounds are going to be in program files. And there's NinjaTrader. There's sounds. There we go. Yeah. So somebody said just delete this whole folder, and that fixes your lockup problems when you're trading. So yeah. So if you deleting all these sounds so the sound player has nothing to play, solves that lockup problem. So yeah. But with Blackbird, you can just go into the alerts, as I showed you previously. Go into the alerts in Blackbird and just disable the alerts, and that turns all the sounds off. So, but I think NinjaTrader still may play its own sounds even when Blackbird's trading. Yeah. So So all right. Yeah. I think you guys get the idea now. Yeah. That the sounds is locking up NinjaTrader. So all right, so if you're having that problem, just delete the sounds folder for now. Yeah, as other NinjaTrader users have confirmed, that fixed their problem. So yeah, all right, so with that, guys, have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, bye-bye, guys.